Uber drivers of Reddit, what is your best story as a driver? What is your worst scariest story? One time had a Lyft driver tell us it was tequila time. Pulled out a bottle and shot glasses and had us all take a shot. Her included. She then drove us to the bars. So there's that. I picked up a few guys that were planning on going to a friend's hotel room to drink. They brought along a garbage bag full of Bud Light. On the way there, they decided to go straight to the bar instead. When we got to the bar they left without the bag full of beers. And when I pointed that out they told me that I could keep it as a tip. That was 3 weeks ago. I still have a bunch left. I once got in an Uber alone after a night of drinking and my driver was kind of sweaty and looked like he just ran or something. When I asked him how his night was he told me that his last fare was a cute girl who was pretty drunk and started making out with him when they got to her place. She started giving him head in the car and then asked if he wanted to come in. Needless to say he was having a better night than I was. I am an Uber black driver. A few months back I picked up a man and woman in their 40s from a restaurant. They were clearly not having a good time. Still arguing about something. Towards the end of the ride he punches her in the face as hard as he could. When we pull up at the destination he pulls out a knife and starts to threaten her and me. I tell him to take it outside and I drive away. I couldn't help but feel bad for that woman so I drove to the county sheriff deputy and told them what happened. Luckily the Uber black cars have a camera inside that recorded the events. When the sheriff looked at the video he asked for the address and arrested the guy. I also reported the incident to Uber. They called me and took a recorded statement by phone. Funny story actually, my friend is a Uber driver too and he was telling me how this girl peed in his car and how funny yet utterly disgusting it was. I am out driving the following week and this passenger was telling me how she peed in some guy's car the previous week. I was in such fear and she made a comment how I began to drive faster. When we got to her destination and she got out I told her I knew the driver whose car she peed in. Other than that I haven't had anything crazy nor hilarious. I don't drive past 2 AM for that exact reason. I got the first half of a handy in the back of an Uber. The handy ended when the guy realized what was happening and adjusted his rear view mirror to watch. What a buzzkill. Chicago. Picked up two guys from a Billy Corgan concert. They got in and wanted to play their own music. Asked if I like Queen. Yes. Yes. I do. Puts on Bohemian Rhapsody. Turns it up. When that ended he asked what I like. I said Rush. He puts on Tom Sawyer. We jam. Then he puts on Van Halen. We jam. I pull up to their place and the dude in back was like, great ride. We should have filmed that cause it would have made an awesome Uber commercial. It's people like that that make the night fun. My friend got an Uber driver to sing back up to the song Drop It Like It's Hot. He did the mouth clicking noises. Snoop. Had a girl get so wasted she passed out. Couldn't wake her for anything. Called the paramedics and they had to slap the shit out of her to wake her up. Hey Jay. Are you ready to go to the hospital? Woo. Let's go. Alright she said it. Let's move her out. My dad is an Uber driver in Dallas. A few weeks ago, he got a call to a wealthy home in one of the suburbs. He showed up and a woman came out with a makeup kit. Apparently, her daughter was at the ACMs and forgot her makeup. He delivered the kit to a nice hotel near the awards ceremony. And the dad came out and tipped him an extra $50 in addition to the pre-existing charge. My dad informed the man that tips weren't required. His response was, "Hey, you just saved me a drive home for some makeup." Again, not a driver. But I had this really cool experience with one. We had just gone to an event with my college graduating class and it was absolutely pouring. We were in an area of the city that we weren't really familiar with. So when the Uber driver was calling us and telling us where he was we just couldn't see him. We weren't really on the street and were taking cover under a roof so we had some trouble making out the intersections. A minute passes and we get a call from the driver asking us where we are as he's trying to find us. As we explain, we start to hear his voice getting louder as we see a man with a jacket running towards us. The man undoubtedly knew it was us calling, and without any hesitation this man throws his rain jacket on one of the girls and just takes us running to his car. Pretty cool dude. 5 stars right there. My friends and I took an Uber after day drinking, and our driver was watching a movie on his phone the entire ride. I reported him. I had a customer tell me they needed to bring their pregnant goat with them. I had to politely refuse. Had an Indian driver with a really thick accent pick me up one night around Christmas. The entire 20-minute car ride was India's twist on Christmas classics. Very first fare. It was January in West Michigan. I had just bought a new car and it was rear-wheel drive. 3 people get in my car. One is very drunk. When I drop them off at their place, the other 2 can't get the hammered one inside. So I get out of my car, and firemen carry him into the house. All while the other 2 are laughing their ass off and Snapchatting me. When I go to leave, my car is stuck in the snowbank and I can't get out. Luckily, the other 2 offered to help me out and pushed my car out of the snowbank. And I drove off. I got a 5-star rating out of that whole mess, so it's all Jude. After a night of partying, my friend decided she wanted to get her nipples pierced. She did. And experienced what I'm pretty sure is the worst pain of her life thus far. We had a 1 AM curfew on the ship we were staying on. Long story, so we decided to get an Uber back to the ship. As one was fast approaching and my friend was crying. The whole ride back she's doing her best not to cry while continually telling our driver, don't get your nipples pierced. Don't let anyone you love get their nipples pierced. Don't even let your enemies get their nipples pierced. Just don't do it. Meanwhile, we make it back to where the ship is docked, but the gate closed at 10 PM. We had no idea how to get around the city or where we'll be able to get on the ship. Thankfully, our driver was able to figure it out and somehow got us back on time. It was a weird night. So my friend had a terrible Uber experience a few weeks ago. The driver kept trying to make conversation, which normally my friend loves. But she told her a few times she was trying to change her flight. The driver also couldn't find her hotel, normal airport hotel, and drove her around for 30 minutes. Friend asked what the problem was. Driver flipped out and kicked my friend out of the car in the mild of a strange city, for my friend. Needless to say, my friend called Uber over the driver. Yesterday driving for Uber, I helped an old lady carry her groceries to her apartment. That was okay. Around 2 AM I picked up 3 people that seemed to be late 40s-ish. 2 guys and a lady. All quite drunk. The destination is less than 10 minutes away. But the moment they climb in the car, the 2 in the back seat, the lady and one of the guys, get really hostile. She's drunkenly threatening to punch him in the face while the guy in the front seat eggs her on, and the guy in the back seat keeps half yelling that he is chill. Super chill. It wasn't too difficult to figure out that the source of the conflict was that he was interested in getting with her and she wasn't having any of it. Sort of. As I'm beginning to consider pulling over and having them get out for fear that a real fight is about to break out in my backseat. The guy in the front seat suddenly changes his tone and starts suggesting that they all should be friends. His plan for patching things up consisted of her showing them her bobs. It took her about 15 seconds to decide that it was a solid plan and happily presented her pleasure pillows for their peeping pleasure. She was seated behind me. I didn't bother sneaking a peek. I suspect I didn't miss much. It culminated with the guys touching her bobs in a manner reminiscent of a pair of 8-year-olds petting a hedgehog. We arrived at their destination, another bar. A couple minutes later, they got 5 stars. From a friend, one average looking guy got in and insisted on sitting in the front seat. Soon after departing, he was fiddling with something in his hands, and finally said, "Wanna see me make this paper clip disappear?" I was thinking, oh duck. It's dark night time. He's going to disappear it into my eyeball or something. Nope. CD changer. It still doesn't work. The roads were icy and it was a dark night. I was driving home from my in-laws house with my wife in the passenger seat and my 2 kids in back. Out of nowhere a deer appeared in the road. I swerved to avoid it but slid on the ice. With quick reflexes I did a 360 right around the deer and kept on driving to the applause from my children and chants of dad rules. I honked at a group of bros to get out of the street. Patty's Day in Chicago, and one of them spit through my sunroof onto my head. So there's that. Not really any stories but met some fascinating people. I once got a pot cookie as a tip. Drove an actor who was in the TV show Defiance. And you'd be surprised how many attractive women use Uber. Used to drive Uber and one of the worst ones was when I roll up to a pickup at the end of a gated driveway to this huge house in Marin County to this 14-year-old girl in a nice cocktail dress. Mascara running down her face sobbing. She gets in the car and I don't say a word since the name on the Uber request was a male's name. We drive towards another really rich part of the area and I notice her grinding her teeth and fidgeting. I pull up to this huge house with this sobbing girl in the backseat. And in the bay windows I see this silhouette of a man with his arms crossed just glaring at the driveway. Girl gets out and she sheepishly says thanks and I tell her to have a good night. TLDR picked up an underage girl from a house party, spun out on coke and delivered her to her very angry father. I was stuck at a Disney resort. Expensive. Piss poor alcohol. Extended family vacation. Kidney stones in me. I booked an Uber. Told the driver to find a gas station that sold beer. Asked him to wait and drive me back. I think I might have accidentally left $20 for his troubles and I think he turned off the tracker for the second half. Best money I spent that whole trip. Edit gas. Walking into the station it had 12 coolers full of beer, good beer. I nearly cried. I would say head on over to our Uber drivers. But it's mostly just entitled whiners itching about how they want Uber to pay them $100,000 a year with full benefits because of how hard they work. Nothing overly exciting has ever happened to me. But I don't drive during the interesting times. Like 2 o'clock on Saturday night. I just tend to do weekend mornings. Returning hungover people to their friends and or cars wherever they left them the night before. I picked a guy up from what was obviously a one-night stand and took him back to the bachelor party he was in town with, not his. I don't think. That's about it. I was taking a cab back from a drunken night of karaoke with a few friends. My friend was up in the front seat talking to the driver. The driver asks my friend, "So have you guys been drinking?" My friend says we have. The driver responds, "Me too." Didn't find out this conversation took place until after we arrived at our destination. The same friend talking to the driver once took an Uber home by himself. Completely plastered. He ended up puking all over himself in the car but neither he nor the driver acknowledged it. He lived in the suburbs and once the driver dropped him off, he realized he was at the completely wrong address. Several miles from his house with no public transportation. So he calls another Uber. But then realizes it's the same guy coming to pick him up and immediately cancels it. He had to wait 15 minutes in a stranger's front yard, covered in his own vomit, for the driver to get far enough away so he could call a different Uber. He later got a $150 charge from the driver for the cost of cleaning the puke out. One of my first Uber rides ever was a girl around my age. And I asked her a lot of questions about what her job was like. She told me that just the other day, after only doing it for a few weeks, she met up with a guy somewhere in LA and his trip was getting paid for by someone else, who sent him off with her. She ended up driving him for over 2 hours to the middle of nowhere and anytime she tried to talk to him to figure him out, he was basically ignoring her. She was too naive and new to the process that she wasn't sure what to do and she didn't want to leave a random guy in the middle of nowhere who obviously couldn't afford his own Uber ride. So she takes him to his destination, prison. Edit. The wording on the last sentence can be misinterpreted to mean she wanted to have him arrested. To clarify, he was reporting for his prison sentencing. I once got an Uber. He was Indian old man. He played really old Hindi songs. I said Ariwa. Sahi gan lagarak hai apan, great. You are playing nice songs. He instantly felt happy and said wow. You guys, I with my friend, speak in Hindi. I replied haan. Kaan nahi. Mera kamainak Hindi thadi bul jawenj. Then he said. I get really upset when I pick some Indian family and everyone starts speaking in English. I picked an Indian family just yesterday. And there were 2 kids, brothers. Looked like age 6 and 10. I felt bad on how frequently they are using duck word. And their mother was also sad and ashamed for that. Those kids were also abusing each other and saying duck yuma thirdaka. In the end he said. USA have lots and lots of good things and very few bad things. Learn the good parts only. Always respect your elders. Love your parents. Don't leave your parents when you grow up saying that you need freedom. Your parents need you most when they are old. Full stop. Rider. But crazy story. Girl driver seemed cool as hell and after passing my high school she told me that she was married to a guy who went there and was a year below me in school. Ride was great. Next day I googled her for an Instagram Facebook contact and no. I got a bunch of legal documents about how she set fire to her ex-boyfriend's parents' house and intentionally held their pet cat in the fire. Locked the cat in the room where she gassed the place. Everyone has a past. But duck that itch. My friends and I got an Uber driver to take us from our college to a Taco Bell at 11 PM. Only the Taco Bell was drive-through only so we had him drive through. And then because they wouldn't let us do 2 separate orders and a line had built up we had him take us to the McDonald's next door also. We did offer to get him something but he refused. And then we got back to campus and gave him a big tip. He did say this was the strangest Uber drive he had had. Didn't happen to me. But a Uber driver was telling me about his customer before he picked us up. He had a New Zealand guy with a bunch of suitcases equipment and had to take him to the jetties in Fremantle, Western Australia, as there was some huge military boat ship that was docked there and this guy was sent from New Zealand to take some footage of it. The guy dropped him off and he turned to him and said, how would you like to make some quick cash if you help me out with something while we are here? He then asked the driver to fly a drone around the ship for him. While he recorded about 30 seconds of footage from the drone of the ship. Apparently the drone was worth about $15,000 and he scored $200 just for flying it around for him. About 2 months ago, I was in a lift with a few friends when our driver nailed a homeless guy. His head spider webbed the windshield but he just got up and kept walking. So the driver just got back in the car and drove us to the bar. American girl I know got drunk and fell asleep in the Uber driver's car. She woke up the next morning tucked up in bed with a bowl and a glass of water on the side. The guy was smart and asked the female neighbor of the girl if she could give a few minutes of her time and mediate to protect himself so he could help the girl into her house and put her to bed. He left her a note on the side explaining just to make sure she didn't freak out. I think it's kinda sweet. A little creepy but good on him asking for someone to mediate. As an Uber customer, I got picked up from a party one night and, as we were driving, I realized the driver was listening to a serial murder story on the radio. About how a man held some woman and buried her in the woods. I was super relieved when he dropped me off. Edit, it wasn't serial. I've heard serial. This was like a play-by-play creepy story of a murder and burial. Probably an audiobook. Not an Uber driver. But my friend is definitely an Uber driver's best story. This is a kid with a bit too much money for his own good. He has 2 apartments. Bought a 3D printer on a whim. Uses Uber for any distance of more than 3 blocks. So I'm in the same fraternity as him and one night while very drunk he decided to prank the fraternity. We have this very large couch in our chapter room and for some reason he thought the best prank ever would be to steal it and bring it to his apartment about 5 blocks away. The problem, however, is figuring out how to transport the thing that far. My friend, of course, decides the best plan would be to call an Uber XL to pick it up and bring it to his place. Keep in mind, he and his friends are absolutely obliterated from many Many shots of hard liquor at this point. I still to this day have no idea how they fit that huge couch in the Uber. But from what he tells me, it was half hanging out the back of the SUV and they were holding onto it as they drove to make sure it didn't fall out onto the road. Anyway, I just imagine that had to be one of the weirdest stories an Uber driver might have. Rode Uber one time. Nearing my destination. Going through my neighborhood. The crazy dude from the hood was out in the street hollering at cars. As we drove by, he spat on the car. Driver stopped and reached between the seat and the gearboard. I immediately knew where this was going. Crazy dude started walking fast towards the car. This was the best part. Driver opened his door about 4 inches and floored it in reverse. The car door hit crazy dude in the chest and he goes flying off to the side. Does a little twist and sits down hard. He comes up as fast as his drunken schizophrenic brain can get him up and he's with purpose hollering and cussing like a crazy dude and then just stopped dead still. Driver says nothing. And I never saw a gun cause I'm in back. But I guarantee you that even a drunk schizo in suburbia gets sobered up right quick. We slowly pull away. Dude goes in a house. Driver didn't bat an eye the rest of the way to my house. Can't say I was expecting a 60-something Grammy named Misty driving a Ford Escape to face down something like that.